Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Imagine for a moment if you could pick up the phone and ask the person on the other end for anything that you want. Would you like to crawl into a submarine and maybe visit the Titanic? Would you want to play with the Rolling Stones on stage? Do you want to have dinner with your favorite movie star? Or maybe walk the runway at New York's Fashion Week? Maybe you'd like to have the police chase you through the streets of Monaco so that you could reenact your favorite Bond movie scene, or even get married at the Vatican by the Pope himself. Well, anything your heart desires is possible if you know a gentleman named Steve Sims. Steve is the founder of Bluefish, and that's an organization that he created years ago to bring people's wildest dreams to life. And I have to tell you, this is one of the absolute best episodes at Self-Made Man that we've ever had. Not only are you going to hear stories that will blow you away, and by the way, all of the ones that I just mentioned are true, but Steve is going to share the key to his success, which is how to network with the world's most successful people. Have you ever wanted to connect with somebody important for your business? Maybe you're trying to book a celebrity that can put your podcast on the map. Or maybe you need to build a relationship with a CEO that could lead to a strategic partnership and transform your business down the road. Well, Steve is going to teach you how to do that today, and the advice you are about to get is absolutely priceless. And in fact, we're going to dive into a wish of mine, which is how to get The Rock onto Self-Made Man for an interview. So if you'd like to hear how that would be done, stay tuned. You're in for an absolute treat today. And please help me welcome Steve Sims. Mr. Steve Sims, welcome to Self-Made Man.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. This has been an episode I've been looking forward to for, a year or two now. And we've finally been able to make it happen, which is absolutely awesome. But for those of our listeners out there who have not heard of you or who have heard of your business, Bluefish, in many ways, you're kind of a living genie, out of the bottle, who's dedicated their lives to granting the coolest wishes people can possibly think of and making them a reality. So let's dive into how in the world, you've become who you've become and how you started Bluefish.
Wow. I'm not quite sure I can live up to that intro. So quite simply, East London bricklayer. I wanted something better than just being a construction worker in London and constantly getting wet. I don't know how these steps happened, but my yearning to get out, my drive to get out of the construction industry got me into everything from cake sales, door-to-door, insurance. Being a big ugly lump, I was always on the door, so I was a bouncer in the days. I actually managed to talk my way into getting a stockbroking job in Hong Kong, got flown out to Hong Kong, landed on the Saturday, hung out with the boys Saturday, Sunday, did orientation on Monday, and was fired on Tuesday. So shortest career in banking ever. And then quite simply, I did what God gave me the talent for. I went back to working on the door. And I was working on the nightclubs in Hong Kong. And this was when all the expatriates were going to Hong Kong. This was the big destination that a lot of them went to. So I started to get to meet a lot of affluent expats, the head of this, the CEO of this, the COO. And I started directing them to clubs and bars that were good that night, even if it meant turning them away from me. Without realizing it, I became the man that knew what was good. So I suppose I became not a club promoter because I wasn't promoting the clubs myself, just I knew that if I was going out that night, I didn't want to waste my money in a bar or a club that was flat. So I started becoming the man that can. Then people would say, I want this. Can you get it? And, I'm going down to Macau. Do you know anyone in Macau? I'm going down ahead. I ended up becoming this guy. And I thought to myself, this is how delusional it was. I thought if I knew a bunch of rich people, I would get a job. Now, here's the funny thing. I said, get a job. I have asked for everything in my life, never been embarrassed to ask. This was the only time in my life, building up that network, I never actually asked anyone for a job. I was so busy building it up, thinking it'd be a field of dreams. No one offered me a job, but I started without realizing it, building up this network globally of events, experiences, backdoors that I could get the most affluent clientele in. And you ask about, you mentioned Bluefish. We got Bluefish and Taste of Blue as our two companies. Bluefish was actually one of the passwords to get into one of my parties. So when I started taking over a yacht in Monaco, I would have people walk up to the board and they would go, Bluefish. And I'd say, come on in. And I'd let them in if they said that password. If they didn't, I didn't care how wealthy you weren't getting in. So that's my humble beginnings through a lot of falling down and making mistakes.
Wow. So as you started to build this network and make these connections, were you organized in how you maintained that? Did you have like an Excel sheet, or this all just in your brain? How did you manage all of that?
Well, again, going back to the basics, and never forget this, I never started Bluefish to be a company.
Right.
So my focus was on, okay, Billy works in this bank. Bobby works for Adidas. So-and-so works for Puma. Because all the manufacturers were out in Asia. So I was building up these Rolodexes. And bearing in mind, this is the early 90s. We didn't even have email then. We didn't have websites. So I was just writing all these things down on a pad. And I don't know if you remember this. I don't know how old you are, Mike. Do you remember the years of the Filofax?
Like the Rolodex?
It was the fancy Filofax, which was like a black leather look folder that you could put all your contacts in there and you could put it. I had one of those. I thought I was so smooth. Couldn't afford a cell phone because they were the size of a house brick, but I could afford a Filofax. And I had all my stuff in there. So there was no ability to cross-reference. So a lot of this thing was, okay, I'm throwing a party, or I'm taking over a yacht, or I'm taking over a penthouse, or someone should have told me I can get into this polo event in Stad. I would start flicking through my Filofax, trying to work out, okay, who's good to go there? Hey, Billy, I know you like this. I've got this opportunity. You're only looking for $1,000. Do you want to do that? Yeah, great. And I would do that. So I didn't have any structure in the company. And in fact, here's the weird thing. In 2000, when we actually started taking it seriously, that's when the company got screwed up badly, because I did build in structure and I built in all the wrong structure. And without realizing it, killed a lot of the community, the tone, and the engagement that Bluefish was known for. So be careful on the structure you put into a company.
Well, so let's talk about what Bluefish is, right? We mentioned a little bit the story and how you got it kicked off, but to sum it up in your 60-second elevator pitch, what is Bluefish?
Well, Forbes called me the modern-day Wizard of Oz for those with a dream and a checkbook. So that's a pretty good tagline. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy that's been asked to send people down to see the wreck of the Titanic, put them on stage with their favorite rock bands, get them piano lessons and guitar lessons from people like Lady Gaga, Sting, ZZ Top, Elton John. I've hosted and partnered officially with everything from the Grammys, New York Fashion Week, Ferrari Cavallino Classic. I partner with Elton John every year for his Oscar party. People have got married in the Vatican, blessed by the Pope. I've closed down museums for dinner parties, and then had Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade them. I'm the man that if you can dream it and afford it, I'm the one that gets it done.
Okay, we've got to go through at least your top 3 favorite stories.
Top 3. I did like the museum one. I had a client that I'd worked with for many years who the only thing that he gave me was, Steve, I want an exclusive dinner in Florence. What I ended up doing was I wanted to make, first of all, I had to create what he wanted that didn't exist. If anyone's ever gone to Florence, they know that Tuscany is all about family styles, sitting around a table for 4 hours, eating bread and wine. If you go to a restaurant in Tuscany and you want a table of 2, don't be upset if you're on a table of 20 and you've just got 2 seats, and by the end of the night, you've now got, a massive enlarged family. This guy wanted something that was a bit more kind of exclusive, hidden door. It doesn't exist in Florence. So we had to create it. So we actually took over the Accademia, which is the museum that houses one of the most iconic statues in the world, Michelangelo's David. And we actually took over the museum, set a table of 6 up at the feet of David. Halfway through dinner, I had Andrea Bocelli come out and serenade them as the local artist of the area.
Wow, crazy.
And the funny thing was, one of the funny things about this, and of course, it's brilliant, and it's great, and it's large, and it's over the top. As we got there, and we kicked out everyone at about 3:30 in the afternoon while we started to set up the meal, and the meal didn't start until 9 o'clock at night, there's two massive great wooden doors at the front of the academia. And there's all of these brass plaques all over, tons of brass plaques. I remember talking to the doorman and saying, hey, what do these mean? Thinking it would be kind of like, kings or queens or, statements or, just little bits of knowledge about the museum. And he turned around and he said, they all mean the same, sir. No food and drink inside the academia. And there's us walking in with catering, chandeliers. So that actually cracked us up. That one was cool. I had, every year we look after, we partner with Sir Elton John for his Oscar party. So we get a lot of people come along to this. We get a lot of people meeting some of our idols, their icons. I love seeing the look on their faces when they finally get to kind of see these people, chat with them and shake their hand in that equal level playing field environment. But here's probably the one, and I've done stuff that's been budgets of millions, but here's probably the one that's been the most impactful for me. I had a client that every year spends $50,000 to $500,000 celebrating his anniversary. He calls me up as usual and it was one of the icon years. I think it was the 20th. He contacts me and he said, I want to do something amazing, wonderful, impactful. And it was that last word that hit me. So I said to him, okay, last year we flew you from Chicago to Paris for one night and then flew you back again. Year before you had cocktails in a diamond vault in New York City. You sat front row at a fashion week wearing the outfit that was actually coming down the runway. So what's going to be impactful? We started talking to him and we said to him, what did you do? How did you meet? And he started to tell me the story about how he used to sit outside at college where his girlfriend, or potential girlfriend, she wasn't even his girlfriend then, used to walk past every day. And he had got into like a little bit of conversation with her. One day he put down, and we call it a car rug, a picnic rug. He put down a picnic rug, had a hamper, bottle of champagne, and a boombox that Run DMC would have been proud of. And he waited for her to come out of her campus door, and he would toast her with a glass of champagne and say, hey, care to join me? Now, this is in the middle of a college campus. You're looking pretty dorky setting this up. So for this 20th, we put her in a car, sent her off. She didn't know where she was going, but she was on her own.
So that's how they met and became a couple.
Yeah, she accepted.
Wow, cool.
So 20 years later from the actual marriage, we recreated the first time he'd ever met her. So she drove around the corner in this black town car, came around the corner. We'd taken over this little section of a public park. And luckily, because he had photographs of when he was with his parents, we got to see exactly what this tartan rug looked like. So we were able to recreate the rug, the hamper. Yes, the sandwiches were better quality, but also the Run DMC boombox, all of that stuff. She got out of the car, he hit play, and I was hiding around a tree. A lot of people don't see me at these events. I was hiding around a tree, just making sure everything was going to plan. We had people that also made sure no one came near them. And this were people like people walking dogs and stuff, just people in the outside, just making sure no one was crossing this line. She stepped out of this car, saw this, and bawled her eyes out. Fell apart. She walked from the car to the rug in tears. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm a big lump of ugly. I'm leaning against this tree, and I'm just like welling up going, I'm okay, must be allergies. But here's the funny thing. For a start, that budget or that cost was under $2,000. The most expensive element of that was actually finding a working boombox. And here's the funny thing. If anyone remembers the 1980s boomboxes, you fast forward to like 2006, how do you record any music onto it? Because all of the cables are different.
Right.
We actually had to get a cassette offline, send it to an audio specialist with the playlist to record it and send it back to us, because quite simply, no one had the ability to record any music onto this boombox.
Wow.
And that was under $2,000. So that was the most impactful.
That's super cool. All right, you got to have another one in there. What's been the most intricate and sophisticated operation you've essentially had to set up?
The intricate and sophisticated and the most challenging, I'll add that extra word, was getting someone married in the Vatican and blessed by the Pope.
Wow.
And for a start, they don't have emails. Anyone that has email in the Vatican is not someone you want to talk to. Anyone that has any power to be has no emails. Okay? So they have no emails. You have to personally be there to sign documents. And I remember being there, going to they have houses, Thomas Aquinas. They have all these houses, they're called, around the Vatican. And you have to go to one house, pick up a piece of paper, walk 5 minutes across the road to the other house, get it stamped, and then only tomorrow at 10 o'clock are you allowed to submit it back at the original house. So to say that they actually have made hurdles and made it hard to do anything is an understatement. I've never met, and I've been to the Pentagon, I've been to Houses of Parliament, the White House, the House of Lords. I've never met red tape like this. It seems as though there's rules just for the point of being rules. But that was the most interesting. You're not allowed to turn up at the Vatican in anything other than a black car. Can't be white, can't be silver, has to be black. So there's all these different little rules that they have. So that was the probably the most ostentatious, the grandest, sophisticated, but also by far the most challenging.
Very cool. And, when it comes to, when it comes to these stories, any of these, have any of these gone wrong, right? I can't imagine the amount of work and planning you'll have to do, and everything's got to be just right. And I've been to plenty of events that have been planned, and there's always going to be, a twist. But did anything ever blow up?
You say blow up. We had an idiot once that wanted to pay us to detonate a nuclear warhead. So we actually declined that one. That's one of the only ones that we ever declined.
Was his name Kim?
Yeah, he had a strange accent, weird haircut. But no, we had. When we do anything, we've been doing this for 20 plus years now. So we kind of know what's in our wheelhouse, what's in our capability. We've got a great deal of credibility. The Bluefish website has a ton of media on there. Believe it or not, that really helps. When you go to someone that's never heard of you before, you can demonstrate that. So if we take on something, we need to know that what we're supplying to the client is 70% of what we can actually do. So you always build in that buffer. I didn't know I could get Andrea Bocelli to come to sing at the Accademia. I never promised the client Andrea Bocelli. I promised him one of the top musical acts or talent of the local area. And when I was when I go to like a major award show, yes, my goal is to make sure you're walking down the red carpet, you're sitting in with the celebrities, you're getting to meet some of the people. But I'm going to promise you brilliant seats and great access. So I'll always give myself that little, and there have been times when the client's just about to turn up onto the red carpet. We call them ghosters. We will have people that will see our client now getting ready, will jump ahead of the line and go, hey, just want to make sure that you've got Mike Dillard registered. There's been times when they've got, no, we haven't.
Right.
And then it's been a frantic 3 minutes of, well, hang on, no, watch a game. The trouble is, you've got this 19-year-old that's on the door of like a major event that 6 months ago was answering the telephone lines and being friendly, now has the biggest ego in the planet. And you've got to challenge that ego, negotiate quickly in a very stressful situation to make sure that person's accepted. You are going through your emails, trying to show them an iPhone with a message on it from their boss. They're not interested in you. And they're not going to have the job next year, so they don't care. So there's a lot of times that it can be challenging on that. So you've really got to know how to work hard, fast, and reliably under stress. But I always promise the clients less than what they're actually going to get.
Yeah. I mean, meet or exceed expectations, rule number one of business, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So you've come out with your first book this year. Well, it's not even, it'll be out next week. And it's titled Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen. So why did you, one, take the time to write a book? And two, what is it about?
So funny enough, it's my second book,
Ah.
but it's only the first. No, hang on. No, you're correct. It's only the first one that's been released. Okay. So here's the funny thing. For many, many years, I've done a lot of TV, radio, podcasts, all of this kind of stuff, keynote speeches, all on the world of luxury. About 2007, a shift came about. As we came out of the recession, I had people going, hey, I know you do a lot of work in London. Could you do a speech on, the intricacies of working with different nationalities, how to adapt to different cultures? Well, yeah, okay. So it's suddenly there was a change that I was still doing the media on luxury lifestyle, but also at the same time, I was now speaking to a lot more entrepreneurial groups. And most of my client bank are actually entrepreneurs. They're searchers for the next experience. So I suppose it was natural that I did this. A lot of the times people came to me going, oh, you need to write a book. You need to talk about your Hollywood A-list, your royalty. You need to be talking about all the things they do to scam. If I did any of that, I'd be dead by 5 o'clock tonight. So then I had Jason Gaynard and Tucker Max. They actually spoke to me a few years ago, and they went, you should write a book. And I went, and I went into it. No, I don't want to. And they went, no. On how you do stuff. You see, you get people into the Vatican, you get people into museums, you get people into award shows, you get people down to see the Titanic. How do you do this stuff? And can it relate to someone that's looking to build a brand, build a relationship, build up their email list, get a better state of credibility? And so we thought about it. We met up with some agents, introduced me to a couple of book publishers. I managed to get a deal with Simon Schuster, which is astonishing. But we had this idea of the book, and when we did the first book, it was great cocktail stories, and I did this, and I did. Something happened when that book got finished that we realized this wasn't the book that could go out. We needed to do we did this, how you can do it for dummies kind of aspect, really break it down. And anyone that knows me, met me, searches me after this podcast will realize I'm a blunt instrument that's impossible to misunderstand. I wanted to put this into a book and go, hey, we did this with the Vatican, but let's forget it's the Vatican for a second. Let's call it a venue. What were my steps? How did I get over that red tape? How did I do that? You can now take this when you're building your florist industry, when you're trying to brand your new car company, when you're trying to do your consulting industry. So we took a book together and really wanted to put in there the story, how I did it, how I broke it down into little chunks, and then at the end of each chapter is the cheat sheet of what you can do to reenact this by taking it into your sandbox.
Well, so that's something I would definitely be interested in learning about because, and I know this is not the topic of the book, but it's a challenge for me, specifically when it comes to meeting people and building relationships. I'm, as my audience knows, a very introverted person. I get along fantastically well with my close friends in life. But when it comes to building new relationships and meeting people and networking and maintaining those relationships, even the ones that I've met through this podcast, there needs to be a process or a system in place for me that I can follow because it's just not natural. So if you could take a few minutes to dive us through some of the most important lessons that are in the book for folks.
Well, I'm going to correct you for a start because everything you've just talked about is. So the element that I spoke about of how to do things is one element of the book. The other elements are on how to get relationships, how to get in front of someone to commence a relationship, and how to communicate with people in the most powerful, authentic manner. So you mentioned about being an introvert. We've known each other for many years, never met face to face, but we've got to know things about each other. It's no surprise that most of the people in our circle that go up on stage and give a great keynote or do a wonderful podcast are very introverted people. Me personally, I ride around on motorcycles. One of the beautiful things I like about motorcycles, I can't take anyone anywhere. I can't answer a phone. I can't have a coffee with me. No one can phone me. I like my space. I like to be left alone. So when you have to go and do something, you need to know how to do it systematically so that you can engage the person. And I always believe that it's all about the engagement. So there's a lot of elements in here about how to communicate, how to get your foot in the door, but more importantly, how to be so irresistible that they don't want you to leave the room.
All right. Would you be willing to dive into any one of those components in detail?
Name the title. Let's hit it.
Let's start there, right? How to meet relationships. And we'll go ahead and use the podcast as a context, right?
Okay.
An interesting part about podcasting, especially if you're brand new, you're starting from the ground floor, is that in order to build a successful podcast, you've got to have on great guests. The more noteworthy your guests are, the more attention it's going to get. The more downloads your show is going to get, the bigger it's going to grow. But the catch is, in order to get those great guests, usually you have to already have a big audience to justify them taking their time to come on your show. They're expecting attention out of that exchange for whatever's, important to them in their business and their life at that moment. So it's a chicken or the egg type of scenario, but going out and pursuing those guests on a regular basis is a huge part of building a process around a podcast. What advice would you give someone like myself or someone who's new, who's building up their show when it comes to going out and making those important connections?
Well, I'm going to widen that net a bit, because you're talking about gaining someone's attention and engagement, that they want to be involved in you. You want them to think that you've given them an opportunity. And that all comes down to credibility. One of the biggest aspects that we have is that we go to someone, we say, hey, we want to borrow a giraffe on Saturday. Oh, by the way, before you say no, this is where we did a lion here. This is where we did a sheep here. We're able to give them context and other industries or other areas and events where we've done something similar, so they don't think that we're new at this. And so it's all down to the credibility. It's all down to the win-win, and it's all down to how you position yourself in that interaction. So I'm trying to cast it a bit wider than the podcast, but let's be specific to the podcast. So I know at this moment in time, and we can jump forward and back by like 10 years, at the moment, for a new podcaster, it probably takes, and I don't want to be rude, 30 minutes to maybe 2 hours to prepare, edit, and complete a good podcast to be able to upload it. It probably takes about 5 to 8 weeks, 6 months even, to get quality people on the podcast. So you can see that there's more energy spent on bringing it than to actually fulfilling it, which is the usual tip of the iceberg kind of manner. The more celebrities, the more impact, the more followers you've got for your podcast, the less the front end is. So it's trying to get that swing and balance it up. Whenever you go to anyone, and here's where the positioning is imperative. Whenever you go to anyone and you communicate with that person, and I'm going to go into communication in a second, but whenever you communicate with someone, you need to let them know within the first few seconds, within the first, make it 5 to 10 seconds, if you're lucky you'll get 10, why it's important for them to keep you on the phone. How does it benefit them? Why you are coming to them with something that is good for them? Because let's be honest, you already know what's in it for you. You already know how you benefit. So for you to turn up and go, hey, I've got this wonderful podcast, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And you can insert the word podcast with anything, any of your business. I've got this, it's brilliant, I want to get you involved. No. You need to go to the person and give them a win straight off the bat. You need to give them a free kick at the goal. So before you do that, that's where the preparation comes in. Anyone that you're going to, again, client, podcast guest, find out what they need at that moment. And so if you're going to a certain, let's pick on a celebrity or a business icon, which nowadays, let's be honest, are one and the same. You know, we got superstars like Angelina Jolie and Elon Musk, who are both superstars and A-list celebrities. If you want to go to one of these people, start digging. What are their likes? Now, we've all got bloody smartphones and Google, so it doesn't take long. What are they like? Where do they hang out? What are they involved in? What are their passions? Passion will override a checkbook every single time. You get someone hooked on passion, you can charge them their firstborn. Find out what they support, what services, product, show, film, song, theater, what are they doing now that they are going to be releasing? So I've gone often to celebrities when I've needed something. Our clients needed to learn how to play a guitar. They've needed a walk-on role on a movie. They've needed access to one of the screenings of a show. I've gone forward and I've said, Hey, Mike, how you doing? I know you're doing this. I've got a way how I can help you with that. Can I have a couple of seconds to just go over it?
Yeah, I can see how that would be successful.
Yeah, so you've not mentioned anything about you, because what's the best question they can always ask? It's going to be, Mike, well, tell me about you.
Right.
You know, there's no better hook and flag that you're winning than for them to turn around and go, well, so what's in it for you? How are you going to do this? Why you get them firing questions at you, you're good. So whenever like the academia, they've never done a dinner party at the feet of Michelangelo's David. So for me to phone them up and go, hey, I want to have a dinner party at the feet of David, how much is it going to cost? They're going to hang up on me. If I phone them up and say, hey, have you ever done it before? They go, no, I'm dead. So you've got to phone them up and say, hey, how are you? My name's Steve. I just want to talk to you about a passion, a dream that's come up. Do you have a second? Because I believe I can bring you a great deal of attention to your phenomenal museum. And so you're straight away going in there with a win. I've had clients that I've needed to get to, and I know you're a car nut. I've had a client that I wanted to get to, and he was a big Hollywood boy. Bit of discovering, he was an amateur Porsche racing driver. Did the track days and things like that, but was trying to get into the Gentleman's Riding series. Okay? And by his stats, he wasn't that good. Now, like both me and you know, in motorsport, and in fact in any sport, the top 10 players of any sport are very wealthy. But there's a huge divide as you go down that pecking order. And in motorsport, you can go to places like Le Mans. Some of these people have other jobs during the year, but they race Le Mans once a year in the privateer class. Yet they're very, 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 very good drivers. So I got hold of one of those drivers, and I said, look, I want you to give an affluent client, he owns a great business, so he could be a great sponsorship deal for you for one of your drives. I want you to give him a training track day. I want you to go to one of his track days and teach him how to drive his Porsche. And the guy was like, that's a great opportunity. I said, look, I'll cover your flights, and you won't be out of pocket, but there's an opportunity for you to get through that door, and you're going to have the day with him. Would you do that? And the guy was like, I'll do it. Then I went to this client, and I said, hi, my name's Steve Sims. I just want to tell you quickly, I know you're a Porsche driving fanatic. I want so-and-so, I won't give the guy's name away, I want so-and-so to be in your car, and he's going to give you a day of tutorial. He's going to teach you a year so your stats aren't so embarrassing.
Yep.
But there's something I want to talk to you about. And so straight away I hit, the guy's like, hang on, you're going to give me this? I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to trade you this. I want something, but I wanted to tell you clearly what's in it for you first.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes back to the being impossible to misunderstand. Now, I said to you that I was going to go back to communication. If you've noticed, both of my examples have been by this weird thing called phone calls.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
This thing that people are scared of like the devil incarnate. So I did a speech a while back that was called Email is Dead, Hurrah. We all have email lists. It's the new phallic symbol, isn't it? You know, how big's your email list? Oh, I got 150,000 emails. There are stats, and we all know this. And I'm not going to ask questions because they're too delicate, but anyone out there listening, and you, think of the size of your email list, and then look at the open rate. And we all know the open rate is a small percentage of the people that are on the list. For whatever reason, getting it blocked by Yahoo, Amazon, whatever, say AOL, any of those kind of places will block it, and you'll only get through to a few of those people. The click-through rate is even smaller of that. So someone could open it and go, oh, I don't like it, and delete it, but it's still acknowledged as an open. Now, if you send someone a text, what happens? On your phone, it flashes up, doesn't it?
Sure.
And so you've now got this text. Here's the daft thing. Ask yourself a question. You wake up in the morning, you turn on, you pick up your smartphone. On it, there's a text, and in the bottom bar, there's a picture of your email, and there's 50 emails, 100 emails, 200 emails. What do you read first?
Well, you know, if it's a text, it's 99% of the time from somebody that you know, and it's personal and important.
So you open the text. Now, going to take it another step further. What about if you video yourself going, hey, Mike, I wanted to speak to you about so-and-so, but I didn't want to jump in. I wanted to give you a call on Thursday. Is that convenient for me to do? All the best. Hey, it's Steve. And you push send. And you're in your garage, you're in your garden, you're at a restaurant, you know, you're on the top of a hike, something like that. There's all of this visual that's now being communicated to the client. But more importantly, when you push send of that text, now what pops up on your phone? It's a clip from a video of Mike. I've now got your face looking at me on my phone.
Yeah.
We know that email doesn't work.
Yeah.
But we do know that you will never, ever, ever not open up a text. And if it's a video text, you're now more engaged. Now, you said to me that someone is personal that's got your number. You can actually go out and get a lot of numbers. Now, if you're going for Elon Musk, you're not going to get his cell phone number. So what do? You go to people within the organization. You go onto things like LinkedIn. You go into a small world, any of these kind of groups, and you search by company. And there's going to be a lot of emails in there. There's going to be a lot of addresses in there. And there will be occasionally cell phones in there. Now, your word was so accurate. It was like a setup, Mike. You said to me that if you got it, you know that it's personal and there's someone that knows you. Okay? How about if you want to get hold of someone, so what you do is you send them a book. You've already Googled and you found out they're keen on Porsche, they're keen on cooking, they're keen on barbecues, they're trying to learn a new language, they travel to Rome regularly, so you're giving them a guide on how to speak Italian. Whatever, you wrap it in gift paper. And in the front of the book, you have a little note, brevity is king, a little note saying, my name's Mike. I would value the time to chat with you. I have a way that I can help you with X. And you wrap it in gift paper. Not in a Staples box, not in a, if it fits, it ships, post box or anything. In Christmas wrapping paper, birthday wrapping paper, any kind of thing like that. And you post it to the client. Or even courier it if it's close to you. Even drive by and hand it off yourself. When you get those kind of things, the secretaries aren't open them. Why? Because they think they're personal. When you get it and you've got a bunch of envelopes on your desk, but there's something that's got Snoopy Christmas paper on it, what are you going to open?
Sure.
And here's the beautiful one. How many fingers does it take to delete an email?
Yeah, 1.
How many fingers does it take to open up a book that's wrapped?
10.
Bingo. You are completely engaged. And here's the beautiful thing. You're picking up that book. You can't be touching anything on the computer anymore. Your eyes are down. You're now ripping a book. When you're ripping a book, what's happening? You're hearing the ripping of that book. You're looking at the Snoopy wrapping paper. You're hearing, you're touching, you're all of your senses are combined. You don't get that on an email. Now, a lot of people say to me, but email's so much cheaper. How the hell is it cheaper if no one's listening to it? You send out a ton of emails, no one opens it. It could be free, but who cares? If they're not responding, it's costing you. I will send out 10 to 50 books, magazines. I had a client the other week, actually, that I found, or a potential prospect, that collected wine, okay? And he was well written up about in a report that he collected these expensive bottles of wine. What I sent him was the foil remover from the top of a bottle of wine. You know that little annoying foil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you can get these little things. It cost me $16. And I sent it to him. I said, you're a great lover of wine. I'm sure as hell, like everyone knows, you hate the foil on the top. And I sent it to him. He actually sent me back a video of him opening up a bottle of wine, talking to me while using this foil cap remover.
Very cool.
And it cost $16. Now, here's the other thing. When you want people on your show, you don't want 1,000 people. You want one. You want one that makes a difference. You want one that's iconic. So stop focusing on building up an email list of 100,000. Start focusing on getting 10 worthwhile clients.
So I've got an idea that might be interesting. We can talk about it afterward. But the Holy Grail, this is just a great example, right? The Holy Grail of a guest for anyone's podcast today, because he's never been on one, would be The Rock.
Okay.
Right? Like he would be Mount Everest. He hasn't been on Tim Ferriss. He hasn't been anywhere yet. And so if we were going to go approach The Rock, the first thing that I would start to figure out is, typically when it comes to celebrities, Richard Branson, other people, Gene Simmons we've had on the show, it's all about their charitable pursuits. Most of them have a foundation or they're really plugged into one, and that's a great avenue to get involved in. And so if you're looking at someone like, Dwayne Johnson, who's this single biggest actor in Hollywood right now, is one of the busiest people on the planet.
Yep.
Our audience is not big enough for him. Like, he'll get more views in the first 60 seconds of an Instagram post than we will with his podcast, right? So there's not a lot in it for him from an exposure perspective. There has to be a deeper reason why he would dedicate an hour of his time to get on the show, right?
Yep.
So how would you go about pursuing that?
So the first question is the one that you posed. You said he's never been on a podcast. My first question, scratching my head, would be why? The only reason he's never been on a podcast is because nothing's interested him to be on a podcast. That's the simple fact. If you're saying to me, like Elon Musk comes out of the woodwork when he's got something to talk about. He's not a showman, okay? And that's why we love Elon. He's a doer. He gets stuff done. But he will go out there and do it when there's a promotion or when something's been said about Tesla and he wants to defend it. You know full well that The Rock loves exposure. His whole business is entertainment-based. Instagram, he goes on and does tweets. He does all of his movies. He loves being the center of focus. So the only reason he's not on a podcast is because it hasn't engaged or attracted him, or he hasn't seen any value in it, because you sure as hell can't say that he's shy about doing it.
Right.
There just hasn't been one that's caught him yet. So in that situation, the first thing I would do is I would try to get into his arena, in his sandbox. There's nothing better. You never want to talk to an agent. Agents are there to say no or charge you 3 times the amount.
Right.
Okay? That's what agents are there for. That's all they're there for. So if you get an agent and hang up, you literally are wasting your time. But if you can find out that there's a charitable event, and he's in Hollywood, you know that. There's a charitable event going on this weekend at such and such, and there's all these charity events all over Hollywood, and there's always these celebrities that are turning up. Some of them are getting an award. Some of them are doing all that kind of stuff. So start searching all of the events that are going on, and you can Google it, award show with The Rock, charity gala with The Rock. Find out what events he actually participates in, where he goes, buy a ticket. Invest in that. Go to the event and be able to walk up to him. And again, same rules apply. Communicate with him that wins for him. Don't go up there going, Dwayne, and you see this all the time with celebrities. They run up there and they go, Dwayne, you're the greatest star in the world. I absolutely loved you in Fast and Furious. You're brilliant. I think you're fantastic. I really want to hug you. Can I get a selfie? How many times do they get that per hour when they're walking down a Starbucks? So what you want to do is, the first thing you've got to do is make sure that there's no pedestal.
Right.
You put people on pedestals, you're only pushing them away. You're making it harder to get to them. So I remember when I was with Elon Musk, I walked up to Elon and I went, Mr. Musk, how you doing? Great to meet you. Oh, we've got this going on just around the corner. And did you get involved in that? All of a sudden, I'm talking to him at a non-pouting fan that internally I actually was. So I have to quite often suppress the giggly little kid that, because of the person I'm talking with. You have to get on that playing field. So it'd be a case of, Mr. Johnson, it's a pleasure to meet you. I believe you're involved in this, and I don't want to take up your time tonight. So always be courteous and sweet. I don't want to take up your time tonight, but how would it be best to communicate with you regarding that event?
Right.
Now, it may be an idea that you go to 2 or 3 events that he's at. I did that with Jean-Paul DeJoria. I went to 3 events, and each event I made myself well known to him. And by the 3rd event, it was like, "Hello, it's me again." He was like, "Oh, did you enjoy that last week?" I did, actually. That was pretty good. And all of a sudden, there's some recognition going on there. I wasn't like one of the giggly kids around him, and I was able to converse to him because we'd both been in the same arena. Therefore, he doesn't know who I am. And bearing in mind, some of the most powerful people, and we're picking on Hollywood, some of the most powerful people in the planet here in Hollywood, you don't know who they are. Because yes, Brad Pitt's getting $10 million for a movie, but the producer's getting $100 million. The financiers are getting $75 million. The writer's getting $20 million. There's a lot of other wealth apart from the people that you know about. And they don't know if you're maybe one of those people.
Gotcha.
So if you're in that sandpit and you're walking up there and you're talking to them, and I know there's a lot of people going out there going, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." It's very easy. Go on the websites and start registering yourself for a load of different galas. Search up Los Angeles Gala. There's a magazine over here called Angelino. Angelino always shows the galas, last month, last quarter, and all the celebrities that were at these galas, okay? Get onto those galas and register yourself on those galas so you get to know when the next one's coming up.
I think it's so important, and the point that you're making here is, I think there's 2 of them. 1, be willing to play the long game, and 2, always put this person's interests in front of your own. This can't be, it's funny, I get emails every single day from people who want to be on the podcast. "Hey, Mike, here's what I do. Here's my story. I'd love to be on your podcast." And I've turned down every single one of those requests because I don't know this person. All they want to do is get on my show and use my audience. And so it's an instant no. Every single person that's ever been on the show, I've pursued and I've asked to be on here because I think they're fascinating, interesting, smart people that my audience would benefit from, and it's a win-win. But if you come at me just because you want something, then it's just automatically a turnoff, right? So I love what you're sharing about being willing to put in the effort, being willing to put in the time, and being willing to have the patience to really get to know somebody and create a win-win opportunity rather than just going, "Hey, this is my one and only chance I'm ever going to see this person. I've got 15 seconds. Here's what I want you to do for me," right? So,
well, there's one big golden nugget that I've not released to you yet in this system. Do you remember at the beginning we said that once you've got the credibility, you can do less time getting the clients and spending more time doing the podcasts?
Right.
Okay. I piggyback through all of my relationships. So when I wanted to get into the Vatican, I communicated with people that are very powerful in Florence that I knew, that communicated with people that were powerful in Rome, that communicated with the Vatican to get me in. If I need to get hold of a rock star, a TV star, anyone like that, I will go to the people that I've worked with and gone, "Hey, do you know so-and-so? If you're happy with the relationship and the benefit I've given you and the relationship that we have and the countless amount of whiskeys I bought you, again, get your humor, get your personality in there. I want you to send an email. I want you to send a text. Text is preferred if you don't mind. And just tell them that Steve Sims is weird, strangely attractive, but a good guy to work with." And just do that. Would you do that? Yeah, all right, then, good. And just give him my number or send an email or put us both on the same text. Of course, the win-win is the same text, isn't it? That's the one you want.
Right.
And then they're now doing your referral base for you. Now, when I've needed celebrities, especially in the music industry, because of the amount of musical events I've been into, I can go to people and I can get them to go forward. And there's nothing better than getting that referral. So in the early stages, you mentioned it's the long game. Just imagine you get The Rock, okay? For a start, you've got that credibility. The next person you go to, you can go, "Well, look, The Rock had never done a podcast before. He did mine." You've got that credibility. You've got that interest. But just imagine if in your long game, that relationship and the impact and the power and the benefit you gave The Rock is that you can actually get The Rock or someone from The Rock's people to make the call for you. All of that work you're doing at the front end is now halved. The people you're getting a better credibility. The people you're are working with are stronger. The less effort you need to put into getting the next person.
Yeah, I've called that kind of the upward spiral of credibility. And when folks ask, how do you build a podcast audience, I said it's all about getting that first big guest and do whatever you need to do to get them. Donate to their charity, buy their stuff, whatever it may be, hire whoever you need to hire to get that person on your show. Because once you can say, hey, by the way, Gene Simmons has been on the podcast, Tony Robbins has been on the podcast, Damon John's been on the podcast, everybody else just, oh, okay, they don't have to go research you to figure out you're a person, with a good reputation or not. It automatically becomes a safe decision for them to make, really instantly.
Yep.
So yeah, totally agree. That's one of the single most powerful.
But it's not just communication. Sorry to butt in there, Mike. I apologize.
Yeah, no, please.
This leapfrogging, I do that through my entire business. If you look at my media page, I wasn't written up about by Forbes and Entrepreneur and Inc. when you start. I was getting the local Gazette and the local Business Journal. And I would then go to none of the big companies wanted to touch me because I hadn't been vetted. I hadn't been validated. But once you get the Gazette, then go to the local journal. Once you get the local journal, then go to the state magazine. Once you get the state magazine, go for like the daily press. Every time you leapfrog up, and here's where it gets horrible, remember those people that get you there, but don't put them on your website anymore. So as you start growing up, and then as you start building up this kind of media and this credibility, and then all of a sudden, bang, you get one of the big ones. You get the Inc. magazine, you get the Wall Street Journal. That's when you start going to the New York Post going, hey, the Wall Street Journal wrote about me here. I actually have a different story, but I'd like to tell you. And that's when you start leapfrogging up, and you can keep doing that. When you get that credibility, keep leapfrogging, and that's what always gets you fresh out there. So whether it be getting into a celebrity, whether it be getting close to a prospect client, whether it be getting media for your business, focus on the relationship to get you to the next relationship. And you can only do that by making sure the initial one is golden.
Yeah, that's awesome. Steve, I have to say this has been one of the most interesting, entertaining, and valuable episodes we've ever had. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. Like, genuinely, this has just been an awesome call. So this is, I've always said that there are two things that will radically change your life, and that's either getting access to brand new information so that you can make different decisions or take different actions, or meeting brand new people. And those are the only two factors in life that really can transform where you're at today and take you to someplace completely new. And the people part is like your stupid human trick, if you will, like your lifelong talent that you've cultivated. You're a master at it. And this is so important. If anybody out there is listening who's trying to build a business and a brand, having the right connections, getting the right access, getting the right kind of attention is absolutely priceless. So first and foremost, thank you for the time today. Second, thank you for writing the book. You can pick it up on Amazon right now on pre-order. It comes out on October 17th. Depending upon when the show is coming out, you'll be able to buy it right when it does, or maybe the week after it'll already be out. But guys, go pick up a copy of this book. If you learn one takeaway from it, which we've already had at least a dozen on this show, and you can make the right connection with the right person, it can absolutely change your life. So, man, thank you so much, Steve. This has been fantastic.
It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Just to give the last power, I don't think we mentioned the name of the book, did we?
Yeah. Bluefishing, the art of making things happen. And
there's the key. You make it happen. It doesn't happen for you. So you got to make it happen.
I love it. Fortune favors the bold. That's awesome. Well, guys, go pick up a copy of the book. I think it's going to contain some information that will radically change your life and your business if you apply it. And Steve, thanks so much for the inspiring stories. I've been sitting here with ideas. I'm like, man, I've got to take advantage of Bluefish and start to plug into what you guys can do. It's just absolutely amazing.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me, pal.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. As always, we'll see you next week. Take care.